Good evening, everyone. That includes you, Attorney Johnson.
I'm here.
Okay, I'm putting on my teacher voice. It is Monday, April 3rd, and I'd like to welcome you to tonight's City Council meeting. Our City Clerk, Pat Gable, will now take the roll.
Albright.
Present.
Arnold.
Here.
Gray.
Present.
Motive. Present. Reed.
Here.
Rolke.
Present.
Steiner.
Here.
If you're able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Tonight's meeting has been noticed in accordance with state statutes and local ordinances, and I'm now looking for a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Alder Gray moves to approve the agenda.
Alder Steiner can second.
So it's been moved and seconded that we approve the agenda for tonight. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, the agenda has been approved. We are going to move on now to correspondence and communication. We have 5 people signed up to speak, and the first one is Mark Rohde. And just a reminder to please give your name and address when you speak.
Hello, Mark Rohde, 743 West School Street, Columbus. I apologize, I don't think I gave my name and address last time when I got started, so I'm in trouble. Quick question, an observation first. It seems in the past few years, our council has gotten us into situations, dealings where we have found ourselves with unexpected and hidden costs that maybe we weren't aware of on the outset of some of our projects. It might be the concrete removal at the dingy place that we talked about last week. It might be the stormwater utility that we didn't have a way to fund. I'm wondering, so I took a look at another project. Did we do an environmental assessment of the Tower Drive project before we purchased the land and before we went to RFP? And the reason I ask is because I think if we have, we would have identified that we're in violation of not only our own city noxious weed problem, but also in violation of Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources NR 40 with a noxious weed, quite a healthy stand of what's called Japanese knotweed. So we have something to deal with, and it's a little more significant than dandelions. In the UK, you can't even get a mortgage on a property when this plant is evident. The reason is it spreads through its roots, through its rhizomes, in its search for water. It bores into foundations of homes and cracks and breaks the foundations. And there's not a lender in the United Kingdom that would support a purchase of a property like that. Well, we have a stand of that on the south end of our Tower Drive property right now, and it doesn't look like any of you were aware of that. Now, our mortgage laws aren't quite as strict here in the U.S., but we do have environmental laws that we're in violation of right now. It's not quite as simple as just chop it up and spread it. It would have been illegal for somebody to take a cutting of this plant and take it to Madison for identification. So congratulations, we own a stand of it in a property that we're about to develop. Doesn't look like we knew that. I think we need to disclose to anybody who wants to develop that there are some costs associated with this. It's not a real difficult fix. It just takes spraying and cutting multiple times a year for 4, maybe 5 years to eradicate this problem. So it's something we can't just overlook. And in fact, we can't just start developing and pushing the dirt around on the property because it is not allowed to knowingly transport. That includes moving dirt from place to place. It also includes tracking the dirt on the machinery to another place outside of the site. And any RFP would need to include either removal of this or a practice or policy to clean the machinery so we don't spread it throughout the site and on throughout the city. We can't just move in with the chippers and haul it off to the mulch pile. That would be illegal. We can't just chip it in place because the floodwaters would run off into the creek and spread it throughout the city. So it's more than just a little problem. And I'm wondering how or why we didn't have an environmental assessment or know this ahead of time. Because once again, we find ourselves in a situation that's going to cost us time and money, and time is money on a project that we want to develop. And now we're all fully aware of the problem, and we don't have a way to mitigate it. We don't even have a weed ordinance supervisor, because that's the Department of Public Works director, according to our ordinance. So we don't have a weed commissioner, and we don't have a way to get rid of this. And we apparently haven't had an environmental study on this property, or this wouldn't be new information, have we? So I guess I would like to know how we would move forward on a property with a plant that we can't move or don't have a plan to get rid of, and haven't included this in our RFP.
Thank you.
And I would caution anybody developing this property to be fully aware of either we didn't know about it, and I'd be cautious in that situation, or we did know about it and we weren't talking about it. So please, as you look at developing this property, be very cautious.
The next person is Kelly Crumby.
I have to move it down a little bit. I'm not as tall. Kelly Crombie, 641 North Ludington Street, Columbus. I just wanted to come tonight and thank both Shelley and Mary for your service to the city. I was never on the council, so I don't really know what an alder does, but I was mayor, and I think Mary always did a great job promoting the quality of life amenities that Columbus had to offer, and promoting those and getting people there, getting people involved. And I think that your contributions, both of you, will benefit the city for a long time to come. So thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Ron Curtis.
Good evening. My name is Ron Curtis. I live at 100 Brookside Lane, Columbus. I came to give a few comments about the stormwater study project's follow-up agenda item. First, though, I would like to thank the council and the opportunity for speaking tonight. And I also want to thank the current council member and the mayor for your attention and effort concerning the citywide flooding issues for the proceeding with updating earlier flooding studies and resulting in the current comprehensive study, and now discussing moving forward from there. My understanding is tonight's agenda item is city staff seeking council direction on how to proceed in a number of areas, and most specifically as it relates to the stormwater projects. And they listed a number of decision considerations and questions, including just maintain the status quo, which I presume means do nothing with respect to funding and completing stormwater projects. I'm here tonight to express my belief that it's now necessary for and to ask that the council direct city staff to develop a stepwise plan to tackle and complete the identified high-priority stormwater projects in the study. That was the purpose of it. The council is well aware of the history, and the most recent concerns. I've been at this for 15 years looking for a solution, particularly for my neighborhood, and then it became for the city in general. The most recent concern was being able to have a comprehensive understanding of the problems and then the priorities for correcting them. The city funded the most recent report at a cost of nearly $100,000 to collect this information, and as such, that information is now available. My understanding from discussion at the council meeting last fall, when the final phase of that study was funded, is that the council was in substantial agreement that the city intended to follow through with making study-identified corrections. Specifically, one council member raised her concern of not wanting to approve the funding final phase cost unless there was intent to make corrections. There was substantial council agreement, and the phase was passed, and thus the final phase was funded. So now I believe it's a time for the council to direct city staff to develop a plan for completing the stormwater projects. Also, a very, very important aspect of the study was to develop priorities so the city could put its emphasis on the top priority projects. The final phase did this. The information for tonight's discussion lists several of the top priority projects and considerations for proceeding. I support the council directing staff to develop a plan for completing at least the 2 top priority projects in the next year. These projects are the Project 9, which is not the priority of the project, but the way the project is listed, and that's the James Street Box Culvert. It's also one of the projects that most affects the ability to complete at least one other project, and one that will likely take substantial time to actually get to completion. There has to be some upfront work, so that can start without any hesitation, it would seem, since that's the top priority. It's a high-cost project, but it's a linchpin. Project number 33, again, not the priority, dredging Second Ward Creek lower segment is the next highest priority. And this one was previously engineered, I believe, in the, back when they were doing the CBDG, and it was actually put to bid, or some aspect of it was. So a lot of the engineering work may already be available to get it to move ahead quickly. It's also a high-cost project. Finally, I respectfully ask that the city develop a means of providing information to city residents about the status of stormwater projects, funding, and specific project progress. Something as simple as posting a developed plan on the city's website or semi-annual updates by city staff at council meetings would be appreciated. And I thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you, Ron. Dennis Weiner. I can talk. Oh, okay. I see that now. Okay. Max Chu.
Hi, Max Chu, 321 Fairway Drive. I appreciate, after being here last time, that you guys acted so quickly on getting some information together for a plan. I think that after the money spent, I appreciate the approach that was in the report that I saw. In my world, I'm a quality engineer, and we evaluate the litany of things that could be done by risk prioritization numbers. It's a factor based on the likelihood of an event and the severity of the consequences. One of the things I don't see that I would encourage maybe the exploration of, but deferring to Ron's comments, of course, is getting information out so we can compare apples to apples. In my world, professional world, we talk about the cost of poor quality, the cost of inaction. And when people are faced with a choice, my superiors are faced with a choice, hey, do we really want to fund redoing this project, or redoing the foundation of this project, or redesigning this? What does that delay? What is that financial cost? We can compare that with anticipated consequences of inaction. And when we make proposals, right now I think that the general populace may be less than aware of the consequences of inaction. If they were more aware, I think there'd be a lot more pressure on it. Nobody here plans for tragedy or bad things to occur. We love the city, we love our location, we love the people, and we love our homes. We build memories here. But the things that we are not doing are going to eventually catch up with us. When I say eventually, it's not a matter of 1 or 2 years. It's been 15 plus years that we've known this event, and I thank you in advance for the action that you guys are going to take. Now, putting on the engineer hat, I'm going to say some of the prioritization numbers I saw, I couldn't quite follow. And I would think that I might be able to follow some of that. And some of them have been discussed in the past here in terms of sequence. Well, I might not know everything, but I can follow math. And I would say that not all of the sequencing that I've heard seems necessary. In fact, if we were to launch a number of the projects, I think 9, 8, 33, and 32 simultaneously, they're not all going to get done at the same time. They're not even going to get done this year. But getting that sequence rolling will allow for a lot of continuous action and improvement. The dredging of the lower Second Creek Ward and opening the culverts, I've heard people discussing as would adversely impact people downstream. Math doesn't work that way. If we look at math as the math of the water, as I defer, of course, as a flow rather than a location, then, yeah, I don't understand some of the discussions going on, but again, there are people more qualified here to discuss that. So please act quickly. Please consider kicking off more than one event now. And I did meet this wonderful young lady here who promised to help me understand something I could not find on the city website, by the way, which is amazing. You guys have stored so much good information there, is as to how much money was already allotted for this fiscal year to manage and to address some of these concerns. Obviously, the numbers in the report that Ron shared with me, they're large numbers. There's no doubt about that. But kicking things off and getting the paperwork, no. That's something that's fully within your control for this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Moving along to the consent agenda. So I am looking for a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda.
Alder Motive will make a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda.
Alder Roki will second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Now we're moving on to new business. And the first item tonight under new business is to consider and take action on ratifying the loan committee revisions to the city loan manual. Kyle, I think you have an update for us.
Yes, so there was some back and forth on this as it's come through the CDA, who acts as the city's loan review board. This was updated last in 2020, and I don't believe that it has ever, in 2020 anyways, been run by the city council. And the way the manual read was a little bit tricky as far as the amendments and who had the authority to make amendments. Arguably, the CDA, acting as the loan review board, looked like they could make amendments on their own. But I think for the purposes of kind of making sure that the loan manual and the revolving loan fund serves the purposes, I think it's good for the city council to be in the loop and approving this so that the CDA and the loan committee is kind of acting with the intent of the council behind it. So what you have in front of you, there was actually an error in the scheduling because there was some back and forth on exactly if we're just ratifying or if we should be doing a two-step, and I made a mistake. This should have been the two-step. I put it on my memo and I forgot to tell Pat. So it stayed on the regular agenda, but the intent was to do a two-step process. So I'm not looking for approval this evening. Okay. I just wanted to talk through it very briefly and answer any questions, and then have it return in 2 weeks for final approval. But essentially, the red line version contains revisions from the CDA, and Attorney Johnson also made some revisions from that to add some clarity and to clean up some language. So I'm not sure if anyone had any questions now or if Attorney Johnson wanted to add anything to that.
Nothing for me.
Does anybody have any questions?
I do.
Yes.
I just have a quick question. So in regards to the ineligible activities, the reimbursement, and it sounds like the administrator or his designee is going to be in charge of this. I just wanted to make sure that this step is going to be checked off, and that if we have somebody that is a little overzealous and they start doing repairs and then they come to the city, that the process will be noted and they may or may not be eligible.
Yeah, so the administrator or designee is the loan fund administrator, but the loan review board will actually be doing all the reviews of the proposed activities. So ineligible activities would be noted. That would be kind of detected right on the application.
Okay.
And yeah, so if there was something like a project that had already started, if that's ineligible, the loan would not be approved in that fashion.
Okay. All right, thank you.
So we will just table this until the next meeting, 2 weeks?
Yeah, it would come back in 2 more weeks.
Okay.
And if there are any questions in the meantime or any clarifications, feel free to reach out and provide that information.
Okay. So, everybody's clear on that one? Okay. So we're going to move on to number 2, which is to consider and take action. Oh, I'm sorry.
Since it's on the regular meeting, we have to actually
Oh.
table it.
So do we have to actually have a motion to table it then?
I think that'd be
All
the
right.
most official.
In that case, I'm looking for a motion.
Alder Gray moves to table the city loan manual update.
Alder Motive will second.
So it's been moved and seconded that we table the the loan committee update to the city loan manual and take it up at our meeting in 2 weeks. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, it's been tabled. Now we'll move on to consider and take action on the state municipal financial agreement for Tower Drive. And this is something that we have talked about in the past. So we are going through the first step is to sign the agreement for the project. And just as a reminder, the DOT said they had sent us some information in December. We never did receive it. And so we now are moving along with, to move this project forward. Does anybody have any questions about the situation? I know we talked about it at our last meeting. And if not, everybody pretty clear on it? I am looking for an action, or looking for a motion to take action.
Alder Gray moves to approve the state municipal agreement for Tower Drive.
Alder Roki will second.
So it's been moved and seconded that we move forward on we approve the state municipal agreement for Tower Drive. Is there any discussion? And we do not need a roll call on this one, so all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion passes. Okay, the next item is to consider and take action on the City Hall roofing proposal. Again, something that we got quite a bit of information about in previous meetings. And I am therefore looking for a motion to approve the City Hall roofing proposal.
Oh, read just the question.
Do you need a moment?
I'm just trying to figure out which part of the warranty goes with what.
Okay.
I'm okay.
I think this is the same business that, is going to be working on the library and, okay. Yeah. So I am looking for a motion to approve the City Hall roofing proposal, unless anybody has any questions about it.
Alder Steiner can make a motion to approve the roofing quotes for the cost of $116,350. $116,350. You can say it properly.
Alder Motive will second.
So it's been moved and seconded that we approve the City Hall roofing proposal in the amount specified. Is there any discussion? So this will be a roll call.
Gray,
Aye.
Motive,
Aye.
Reed,
Aye.
Rolke,
Aye.
Steiner.
Aye.
All right,
Aye.
motion carries.
Great. Okay, we're moving on now to number 4, which is concerning the ordinance around the ATV, UTVs that we have already passed. Council's already passed it. And this is ordinance 783-23, an ordinance to repeal and recreate section 98-317A of the City of Columbus Code of Ordinances concerning all-terrain vehicles and utility terrain vehicles. And I think Brandon was going to, where's Brandon? Oh, there he is. Just kind of give some more information on this one. It's pretty straightforward, but.
Good evening. I've been working with the DOT because we haven't heard from them on approving our permits after we created the ordinance late last year, early this year, whenever it was. And they had some concerns and they just wanted to clarify some of the language in there that would they be more comfortable approving it, our permit. So that's what this minor changes is, clarifying the state connected highways that fall under the maintenance jurisdiction of the city.
And involves the signage, so that they wanted to actually change the wording on the signs? Is that what they were
No,
proposing?
just for our ordinance.
Okay, just for the ordinance itself?
yep.
And my understanding is the signs are here and pretty much
We have the signs ready to go.
and they're ready to go, and
Just need the permits from the state.
as soon as the snow melts in a couple of months, we'll be able to get out there. Okay, so this is one of those three-part things where, first of all, I would like a motion to suspend the rules.
Alder Gray moves to suspend the rules.
Alder Albright will second that.
So it's been moved and seconded that we suspend the rules. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, and the second part is a motion to waive the reading of the ordinance as required by the ordinance. So I'm looking for a motion to waive the reading.
Alder Motif will make a motion to waive the reading.
Alder Albright will second that.
So it's been moved and seconded that we waive the reading of the ordinance. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And the third part of number 4 is the actual motion to adopt ordinance 783-23. So I'm looking for a motion to adopt the ordinance.
Alder Rolke will make a motion to adopt ordinance 783-23.
Alder Gray seconds.
So it's been moved and seconded that we adopt ordinance 783-23. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion passes. Okay, so that has been taken care of. Item number 5 is to consider and take action on the amendment to the city administrator contract language. Again, something we've talked about in previous meetings. So I am looking for a motion to approve the amendment to the city administrator contract language.
Alder Motif will make a motion to approve the amendment to the city administrator contract language.
Gray seconds.
So it's been moved and seconded that we approve the amendment to the city administrator contract language. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Item number 6 is to consider and take action on the city property RFP discussion. And if you look in your packet, you will see that the staff is looking for some direction from council. They have prepared 3 request for proposal documents for review. One of them is at 1149 West James Street. One is the vacant land at the intersection of Western Avenue and Tower Drive. And one is for 1400 Park Avenue. And so they're looking for direction from council regarding the RFPs and regarding the leases for 2 of the properties mentioned. So we're looking for a, are there any questions or discussion on this? Or people pretty clear on what's being asked?
Mary, I have something to say.
you can go.
Okay.
So we purchased 1149 West James Street as a potential area for a potential location for a fire station. I just want to point out that the community is still interested in putting a fire station there. And so I feel like if we're going to do the RFP, I would hope that we get moving on the recommendation versus having this set for another 10 years.
Thank you, Alder Albright. Trina?
Thank you. I still feel uncomfortable putting RFPs out on the properties at this time. I feel like we've had such a lack of thoughtful deliberation, and that it'll take many sessions to go through the long-term planning on what would be best for these sites.
So what would you like to see happen?
I would like to table it and kick it back to the cow.
For more discussion in the
More
future?
discussion.
Alder Gray?
In my opinion, our comprehensive plan already pointed out that, like, the property on Park Avenue is where the city had planned future residential development. Like, this isn't anything new. And part of the deliberation and deciding how to move forward and what to do things is the RFP process. I don't believe there's much more for council to discuss until we go to RFP and we can talk with potential developers and come up with viable options that people would be willing to do. Prior to that, what else are we discussing that hasn't been discussed? I think waiting and kicking this back to COW is just doing what Columbus has done for the entire time I've lived here, and longer than that.
So are you thinking that if we go to RFPs for these properties, then we'll have an idea of what is out there?
Right.
And then
That's the entire point of it.
consider the different options that are presented to us? Does that make you feel any more comfortable, Alder Reed?
Unfortunately, it does not. I just feel so rushed. And I know that so much of our constituency is rather concerned with how fast things have gone lately. I mean, I know it feels like this is a take charge moment, but that's not how it comes across.
Okay. Well, thank you for your feedback. And so I guess I am looking for a motion.
My only question is if there is in fact some noxious weed on the Tower Drive property, is that a problem to move forward, or would that just be part of the discovery in an RFP process?
I think as the RFPs are structured right now, they're more of a discovery process and a process to engage with a variety of people with a variety of ideas to help with the council making decisions about what the future of multiple parcels might be. That's sort of how I approach this. And the outcome might be that one of the three parcels get developed or none, and then the city may decide that two of the parcels are for city purposes, based on the needs.
Right.
So that's how I approached it in any case. But I certainly think that, part of that would be the discovery of, if there are things in the agricultural areas or in the areas that might actually literally remain in the
Right, Tower Drive specifically, we aren't going to develop all of it.
Yeah,
If
and that
decide
we alluded to
develop
that
it,
in the
there's-
RFP, that area might actually be retained in city ownership for the purpose of flood storage or other stormwater things. So, that would give us the potential to, address things if it needed to be done that way, because there are certain areas that are really not developable there in certain areas. So, but it really is up to the council. The request was to see some RFPs. These are some examples. They're not exhaustive, but it starts a 2-month process where people can put some ideas together and gives us some time to, in 2 months, see some ideas and start a process to explore what those ideas are, and then see how, those ideas fit with what the city council sees as the other needs and how those might fit together. But, it's really up to the city council on where they see going collectively.
Yeah, and I think you put it a little bit better of what I was trying to say is the RFP process, we aren't committing to anything. We are getting ideas. This is part of the discussion. This is part of us trying to figure out what to do. It might be that James Street is decided it should be a fire station. It might not be. We don't know that until we go to RFP, until we start talking to people that know more than any of us do sitting up here. There is very little that the council is going to be able to talk about or learn more than without going to RFP. This is just part of the natural progress of doing things. Unless you have something to add, I'll make a motion.
I was just going to add that I think, given the timeline, if we approve the RFPs, which I think we should also renew the 2 leases, as it would be almost through the summer for those leases by the time we're even close to thinking about a decision.
So the leases, if we don't give them notice by May 1st, they have that through the 2024 growing season. So we won't get on that land until 2025.
Right.
So if you like a proposal and you plan it this fall, you're still going to have to sit on it for a year before we can do anything.
So if we want to get started in fall, then we would not renew.
The land is locked up essentially through this growing season.
Okay.
So if you want it for next growing season, that decision has to be made. There are some penalty clauses, but in good faith, we should kind of let them know if we intend to be taking that back before May 1st, if we're going to take it back in 2024 for the growing season.
Okay, thank you.
Alder Gray moves to approve the RFPs for 1149 West James Street, the vacant land at the intersection of Western Avenue and Tower Drive, and 1400 Park Avenue.
Alder Steiner will second.
So it's been moved and seconded that we approve the RFPs on the properties named. Is there any further discussion?
Do we need to say that we're not going to renew the leases?
It's not part, it's just RFPs.
I'm looking for some direction. We can bring back the official, notice of whatever we're going to do on that. So staff just need direction on what to bring back for formal approval. But I think let's clean up this motion first.
Okay. So it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
No.
So 2 nays? Okay. Moving on then to item number 7, which is to consider and take action. Oop, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, Pat.
And I guess I'm just wondering for staff direction, what is the council looking for as far as lease termination to come back at the next meeting so we can meet them May 1st?
I think we need to be prepared for the RFPs that come in so that we can build or do whatever we're going to do as soon as possible. And if we need to cancel those now for 2024, now is the time.
So maybe entertain at the next meeting, entertain a notice of cancellation for next year? Okay.
Okay. Anything else? So item number 7 is to consider and take action on claims in the amount of $650,473.09.
Alder Roki will move to approve claims in the amount of $650,473.09.
Alder Albright will second that.
So it's been moved and seconded that we approve the claims in the amount specified, and is there any discussion? So we'll do a roll call.
Gray,
Aye.
Modic,
Aye.
Reed. Aye. Rolke,
Aye.
Steiner.
Aye.
Albright.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, now we're moving to the report of city officers, and City Administrator Kyle Ellefson will go first.
All right, thank you. The Folsom Street project is going well. We just received pay request 1. That'll be coming through on the next claims packet. The sanitary sewer is done last week. The water is following closely behind. They're hoping not to lose many days to the weather, but that's kind of a question mark right now. They've moved pretty well so far. Last week, they ran into just a little bit of rock. We know there's some rock in that area. And then this week started off with a little more substantial rock. They had to do some pneumatic removal. We're still within sort of the planned or estimated rock removal, so it doesn't seem to be a problem right now. We're still within budget. And it wasn't anything major, but it's something to keep an eye on. And Jason's on top of it and documenting that. So overall, that project is going really well. It seems like the contractor and the residents are getting along well together, and the garbage is getting moved and getting collected. So the project is going smoothly at this point. With the weather, we've been keeping our eyes on the water levels in the creek and in the river. We had a good amount of rain on Friday and Saturday. And with Fall River releasing some water, we had DPW release some of our water and open up the dam some. And we were able to keep our water at safe levels, but it did come up substantially. So we're continuing to keep an eye on that, looking again to see what the next few days bring with the storms coming in. And again, with the storms coming in, I'm not going to talk about winter parking this time. So, but there's the potential again for severe weather with this one. And so as we talk about severe weather and the tornadoes, we'll have our shelter open again this time, and that's in the 161 building. So unless the direction of the storm changes and it's not going to be severe, we're likely to have our storm shelter open. That's the 161 building. The Recreation Director's office is in that building at the corner of Mill Street and Dickinson Boulevard. And last thing is obviously election tomorrow, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. at the Community Center, which is right next door, formerly the Senior Center, the same place you normally vote, right next door. And again, with the weather, be prepared to, maybe get rained on, but hope to see everyone there tomorrow. And that's all I have.
Yeah, I'm going to be working as a poll worker in the morning tomorrow, and I actually asked what if there was an option for people to wait inside, and there really is not, because there is limited space, and we are only allowed so many people in the building at a time. So I want to remind you, if you're going to vote in person tomorrow, it's going to start raining in the afternoon, probably at the busiest time. It's going to be cold, and bring an umbrella. Dress for our delightful Wisconsin spring weather, which means wear your winter coat, because you will probably be waiting outside unless you go tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock when we open. The Rec Department, their Easter egg hunt is coming up on Saturday, April 8th at Fireman's Park. And Amy Jo Myers sent me over an article. It was in the Beaver Dam Daily Register, I believe. Is that right, Amy Jo? Yeah. And it's a great article. If you have a chance, take a look at it. There's a picture of the Easter Bunny and several quotes from Amy Jo. She's been coordinating this event for 13 years, and they are going to have 10,500 eggs hidden for the kids on Saturday. It's amazing. Amy Jo said, every year I see faces that have been to the egg hunt before, and those family members are quick to help out those who have not been a part of it before. So it actually starts at noon, right? Yep. But the egg hunt starts at 3:30, and the siren blows then. And the city warns residents, please do not be late. The Easter Bunny will not wait. He has a busy night ahead. So there you go. From the library, there will be a presentation by Kieran Murphy, who is a Frank Lloyd Wright Taliesin East historian, and that's going to be Friday night this week, April 7th at 5 o'clock. No registration is required. It'll be in person, and he's going to talk about Frank Lloyd Wright in Wisconsin. The library is also going to have a free workshop for adults on basic computer skills, and that'll be later in April, Thursday, April 27th at 5 o'clock. They they do ask if you can register in advance, just so they know how many people are going to come. Finally, this is my last meeting that I'll be presiding over as your mayor. I want to thank all the city staff and all the department heads who are doing such a great job of keeping our city running smoothly. It's been a real pleasure to work with everyone. Special thanks to the people that I see most often at City Hall, Pat, who's been just so great as our clerk, and Brandon, who has so many hats that he wears, and he still gets the job done. Stephanie, Tori, Allie, Crystal, I just enjoy seeing all of you when I come in on Tuesdays. I also want to thank, Attorney Johnson, and special thanks to our administrator, Kyle Ellefson, who has done a great job of training me to be a mayor, and now I'm moving on. But I've done it all. So I just want to thank everybody. I also want to thank the alders. It's been a real pleasure to work with all of you guys. I think before I got elected, I really didn't know any of you except Trina. We go back a long way. So it's been fun getting to know you. I think we have a really great cohesive council. We don't always agree on everything, which is good. And I think we disagree and work together respectfully, and I really appreciate that. So I'll kind of miss coming here twice a month, but I'm going to enjoy my retirement, and I wish everybody all the best. And now, I could, actually. I think I'll sit home in the comfort of my, and watch you on cable. So now I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
Alder Motive will make a motion to adjourn.
Alder Gray seconds.
I forgot, I was going to also, sorry, before we get to the motion, I was going to thank Shelley for your service, because we're leaving at the same time. And I really.
When to get out.
And so thank you very much, Shelley. It's been a pleasure working with you.
I've enjoyed it. I honestly have. I'm 50% happy that I'm getting out of it and 50% sad that I'm not coming back.
Well, you're young yet. You can run again.
I know. I'm super busy at work.
Yeah.
And so that's one less stress thing that I have to worry about.
Right. So now I guess we have the motion. It's been seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. Meeting is adjourned.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone. First meeting went fairly quick, so we're just going to move right into our committee of the whole. Today is Monday, April 3rd, 2023. I have my phone, 7:16 p.m. And with that, if our city clerk, Pat Gable, could take a roll call, please.
Albright.
Present.
Arnold.
Present.
Gray.
Present.
Motive.
Present.
Reed.
Here.
Rolke.
Present.
Steiner. All present.
Thank you. And this meeting was properly noticed. So next up on the agenda is to approve the agenda. If there's no alterations or comments, I'll take a motion.
Alder Motive will make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
I have a motion from Alder Motive and a second from Mayor Arnold. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Next up is citizen comments. I have one person signed up tonight. Chief Weiner, if you'd like to.
Good evening. Just two real quick things. An update on the body cameras. April 13th, the vendor is going to be here and we will be live. Everything else is in place. So April 13th, 14th, roughly we'll be up and running, hopefully smoothly, expecting hiccups like there are with any other kind of technology program. So we're ready to go, and he's going to be here the 13th and the 14th if needed. So we're excited about it. The other item is the National Drug Take-Back Day for the spring this year, April 22nd, which is a Saturday, at Prairie Ridge Health from 9 a.m. until 11 a.m. And it is drive-up service. You just drive in and you pull right up towards the main entrance, and you'll see, it'll most likely be me. You'll see me sitting there, and we'll collect the stuff right from your vehicle, and you just keep driving. We're going to make sure we have some better signage up this time. Last time, a lot of people were confused and ended up parking in the lot and walking and giving it to us. And our goal is to just make it very uneventful for people to pull in, turn it over to us, and they can keep driving. So April 22nd, 9 to 11, main entrance to Prairie Ridge Health. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Was there anyone that didn't get a chance to sign up that wanted to speak? No. All right. Moving on. In your packets, you will find minutes from the Beautification Committee, the CUC, the Library, the Senior Center, and Tourism. Any questions, comments, concerns on any of those? Seeing none. All right. Item number 6 is to consider task order 2023-02-2023 street maintenance and the WISLR rating updates. Did you want to go over that with us, Kyle?
Sure. So this is a task order for Rupert Milky to take care of a couple street maintenance duties. They would manage our design, bidding, and construction services for the patching and the chip seal projects that we have. in 2023. And then we'll also have them do the Whistler street rating updates for this year. They're due this year. So this is money that will be covered in the budget, and we can cover that in the street and engineering categories. So we're asking that this be approved and move forward for approval.
Perfect. Thank you. It's a pretty straightforward one. The Whistler, we have to do every other year, and this is the year we're doing that. Any questions or comments, thoughts? No? Is everybody okay moving forward? Okay, perfect. Then next up is item number 7, to consider the street closing request from the Chamber of Commerce for Redbud Day. In your packet, you'll see the request that they filed, exactly where it is, everything of that nature. Any questions or concerns of this? Everyone's okay moving forward? Perfect. Then next up is item number 8, review the request of the City of Columbus for the conditional use permit for the replacement and upgrade of the sanitary sewer lift station at Meister Park. Brandon, did you want to give us a little background on that, or?
Hello again. So we have the lift station currently at Meister Park. It is located right off the Crawfish River. It's right in the floodway. This one has come up to design and upgrade the facility and also to move it out of the floodway, move it closer to the ball diamond up there. This went to Plan Commission and it requires a conditional use permit because it is moving it from the floodway. So,
Perfect. Everybody understand that it's necessary for the conditional use just because of its location, but needs to be done. Any questions or comments? Everybody okay moving forward with the? Yep. All right. Then next up, Brandon already ran away, but he probably shouldn't have, is to review the request for the DPW to pay the invoice in the amount of $18,648.85 for the DPW sweeper.
yeah, so I inherited this one. The sweeper, Jerry had talked to Casper's Truck and Equipment about some repairs for it. The big hurdle for them was trying to get it down to Butler, Wisconsin. We don't really have the equipment to haul it down there. So we finally got I believe Harry's Towing or Henry's Towing towed it down there for us. And it was their understanding from the previous public works director that they were just supposed to repair it and fix it so that we didn't have to worry about it. So rather than send us a quote or an estimate, they just did the fixes and sent us a bill. And I said, well, that's above my level of authorization for pay, so I said I'd have to run it through council. So the sweeper is done, it's repaired, they have it, we just need to pay for it.
Thank you, Brandon. So an unfortunate circumstance, but the work's been done. We kind of have to pay the bill. It's a little backwards, but it is what it is.
Did they do a good job, Brandon?
From what I understand, I haven't seen it. They said it's operational. It was in pretty rough shape. It did need to be done. It's just the way it went is
Right.
not how we prefer it to be done.
Okay.
Alder Reed?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I have no problem with our new bill. I very much understand how that happens. My only question was wondering, is there any possible partial refund from the company that did the previous repair that did not work out with the parts? Just something to possibly look into.
Yeah, could certainly look into it, yeah.
Thank you. That's a good thing to bring up. Doesn't hurt to try if we can get a little bit of money back. Not a bad thing. Awesome. So everyone's okay moving this forward as well? Perfect. Thank you, Brandon. Now you can run away. All right. So next up on the agenda is to discuss the CHLP ordinance draft and request. So this has been an ordinance that has been a long time in the making, pretty much the entire time I've been on council, I believe, actually. It's when we first started looking at this. Unfortunately, it wasn't moving forward very quickly. And the CHLPC would really like to have the ordinance in place so that they can start performing their key tasks, which I believe in a community like ours is absolutely vital. I've seen this ordinance many times in different iterations. I personally don't have any major issues with this. I personally think it's something that we should move forward on so that we can start functioning, the CHLPC can start functioning again. Any questions or comments? We do have multiple members of the CHLPC here tonight if you guys have questions that I can't answer for you. Go ahead, I'll read.
Oh, no, not a question, but I am feeling pretty comfortable with the language. It does look like what I remember discussing, I don't know, maybe 4 years ago.
Right.
So yes, I would be for it.
It's pretty straightforward. And one of the key changes in here is, so the actual designation of a property, of a site or a district or a historic structure would be made by the council, whereas in the old ordinance, it was made by the CHLPC directly. So now the CHLPC would make a recommendation and the council would approve it. So I think that's a positive change, honestly. Go ahead.
So I would actually like to see it go back to the ordinance committee. The only reason why it stopped in the ordinance committee is because Matt left. And it never came up to talk about it again. And I don't really know why, but we definitely wanted to.
Thank you, Alder Albright. Alder Motive?
I agree. This hasn't gone through the proper channels that it needs to. And I'm not even sure that some of this is possible. If I remember right from the previous ad hoc committee meetings, that we're not even sure that our historic districts are legal because they weren't completed.
Well, they aren't. That's part of the problem. That's why we need this ordinance so that we can create them.
I want to make sure that we are in the legal right and we are not setting a precedent of letting our committees write their own ordinances. This is something the city should be in charge of.
I would like to remind everyone that the committee is a city entity and they did not write this ordinance. This ordinance is almost word for word between our old ordinance and the different updates from multiple people. They very much did not write an ordinance, and there
Attorney Johnson, did you write this?
I did not.
All the
I did not write this, and I don't know where it came from.
There we go.
I don't, at the risk of throwing water on this whole thing, a lot of what is in your packet today is actually, I don't have a big problem with, but there are two sections of this ordinance that is in your packet today that fly directly in the face of what the guy from the State Historical Society told us a couple of years ago that caused me a tremendous amount of concern.
I think that's a misunderstanding, Attorney Johnson.
I don't think it's a misunderstanding.
So the portion that you're talking about is, so this, like the certificate of appropriateness needs to be, the HLPC needs to have authority over that. The actual designation, they can be make a recommendation to council, and the state has confirmed that.
Well, I haven't been part of any conversations about this for probably close to 2 years now, so whatever's been done behind
Right.
the scenes
And
and outside of what I do, I can't speak to.
Right.
And if somebody has said that that's okay now, that's completely contrary to what the same person said 2 years ago. That's all I'm bringing up. If you guys are all good with it, then full speed ahead. But this.
Yeah, what Attorney Johnson is alluding to is so that, because some of you on council don't know, is maintaining the CLG status. So there was a potential issue if the CHLPC didn't have certain powers and they were only a recommendation, a board that would recommend to council, and council had the final power, then we wouldn't qualify for the CLG status.
What is CLG?
That is the, certified local government, thank you.
Thank you.
But the state representative did confirm that the way this is written, he was actually a big portion of writing this and helping with this ordinance, that it would not affect the CLG status. I'm not saying we have to approve it today. Obviously, we cannot. We're just at the committee of the whole. But it is important to move forward. The CHLPC has basically had no power to do anything. And when you look downtown, now we have purple buildings, and where there are things that could have been prevented if the CHLPC still had the power that they should have. And the way things are right now, there is no body that has the power. Like, we don't have the power, the CHLPC doesn't have the power, no one does. So this is something that is actually necessary that we have to discuss and get accomplished. Whether or not the HLPC are the proper people to write it is really quite irrelevant, because we are the proper people to review it and put it into law. We are the legislative branch. Anyone can bring forward a piece of legislation. There is nothing saying that a random person from the street can't bring forward a piece of legislation for us to look over. It's us that is literally our job on council. That's what we're here for. Alder Reed?
Oh, thank you. It's been so long. I am wondering if we need to set up a special workshop for council and HLPC to have a deep dive discussion, because it has been quite a while.
Right.
And I can definitely see how this would come as quite a surprise, because it has been a long time.
Oh, no, I agree. I don't think this is something that, and it's literally not something we can act on today because we're at the committee of the whole. The main reason I wanted this on is so that we can start actually doing something. This has been something that has been on the back burner for years, for 4 years, I believe it is now, that we have had inaction on this. It is something that needs to be accomplished. Now it is in front of council. There is no reason for it to go back to a committee other than the committee that is sitting right here, which is the committee of the whole. We have the authority to make the recommendation to council and then enact it into legislation. That is how things work. So I know not everyone has probably read all of this very intensely, so we should table it to our next COW, I believe. I don't think it's ready to move forward to the regular meeting yet. But are there any questions or anything in here that you guys have? We have very knowledgeable people in the back row to help answer questions.
I'm just going to say I agree. Would you wait on it? I admit I didn't dive into it as much in the past 3 days as I would have liked. I tried to this day, but I've fallen asleep while doing it. But I would like to look at it a bit closer and try to really understand what's going on with it first.
Right. Yeah, no, and that's a very fair point. And that was the whole intention of tonight, is so that it's in front of everyone so we can start looking at it closer and start doing something with it. Because it is an important ordinance that we need to get accomplished. And now that it's in front of us, we can accomplish it. Any other questions or thoughts on it? Go ahead, Alder Reed.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, just the idea of resurrecting the ordinance review subcommittee is something we definitely need to bring to the forefront and fast.
I agree.
I absolutely agree. I mean, if we have a process, that ordinances should go to the ordinance committee, and this one made it there, but we weren't able to finalize it, and I don't think that's our fault that it didn't move any further.
I think
All right, we can speak one at a time once you're called on. But this ordinance, I do agree that this is only one of very, very, very many ordinances that need to be looked over. We have a lot of very dated ordinances and a lot of very confusing things that contradict each other in our ordinances. So there is a strong need for the Ordinance Review Committee. The Ordinance Review Committee's need is expired on this specific ordinance. It's in front of council and it is ready for council to review. Unfortunately, the Ordinance Review Committee hasn't reviewed it for the past 2 years, and the reasons behind that are irrelevant, but they haven't. So that is where we're at. So if there's no more discussion on the actual ordinance, we can pick this back up at our next COW to look it over again. I'd encourage everyone to read it through carefully and compare it to the old one. Most of it's very, very similar, honestly. Most of the changes are, like, there's the change where the council is the final approving authority for the designations, which I think is a great thing. That was one of the things that previous councils were afraid of, was the HLPC having too much authority in that respect, and that is altered now. But other than that, I think it's something we need to read over. Go ahead.
Oh, I would just like to invite one of the HLPC members up to briefly let us know if there's something they would like us to look into in particular on the ordinance.
That's a good point. Is there anything that one of you three would like to kind of point out to council while we're reviewing it over the next couple weeks? If you'd like to come up and, if there's any like key points that you think we should be looking at, or you guys are you have looked at this more than anyone. The face with the 3 lines coming out of it. Yep, you're good.
Okay, thank you. I'm Katie Nichols. I'm on HLPC, and I was on the subcommittee that reviewed the ordinance. I guess if you don't mind, I'd like to take a moment just to explain our process. We took the proposed ordinance from Attorney Johnson and made some changes based on Jason Tisch's recommendations, and then added back in some things that we felt were necessary to properly perform our duties from the current ordinance. So nothing that you see there was written directly by us for the most part. It was either what Attorney Johnson had written already that we tweaked based on Jason Tisch's recommendations, or things from the current ordinance. As far as things that you would want to look at in particular, I would say maybe it would be helpful to have the correspondence that our chairperson has had with Jason Tisch so that everything's clear about the CLG status and what needs to be there. My understanding is that everything that needs to be there to keep CLG status is there now. And that was Jason Tisch's opinion as well. So I think the timeline maybe came as a surprise to people, but for us, we felt we were doing good work for the city. And our intention was simply to get this in front of council so that we have the power to perform our duties as stated in the ordinance.
Thank you very much. And could you clarify who Jason Tisch is for council?
Oh, he's our state representative from the State Historic Preservation Office for CLGs.
Thank you. And Alder Reed, did you have a question for?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you're good. So, thank you guys for all your work. I'd also like to remind council that we do review every single one of the CHLPC's minutes, and as well as their subcommittee that was working on this for the past 2 years. So council should have known this was being worked on if you pay attention to your packets. They've been working on it for years. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Ruth Hermanson, Chair of CHLPC, and I just want to reiterate, in short, kind of what Ian said. We certainly did not want to step on anyone's toes or act out of our realm. It was real important to get it done, and we were instructed, I believe, was it last September, that there was discussion at the city level letting us go forward with this. And so we formed the subcommittee, which should all be in our minutes if you review that. And the issue is, there was a lot of things going on, especially downtown, that was brought to our attention, and it was out of our control. If there was no certificate of appropriateness and then the CLG status. So I know that Katie, the subcommittee, these guys probably have over at least 50 hours apiece into this piece. And they tried to, do the best job we could. I think we've sent it to several people for review over the time. And, we apologize. We certainly don't want to ram this through. But I will tell you, without a COA, which we had in place for 30 years and was very effective, and right now we're powerless, and we've been powerless since it was brought to our attention that the COA was not binding. And so that probably happened, Kyle, what do you think, like a year and a half ago?
Yeah, close to 2 years.
2 years?
Close to 2 years.
And with the ordinance subcommittee, which I attended that with the city council members, and then you guys have been very busy, and we were kind of at a loss, and this was what we were instructed to do. So again, I apologize. We try to do our best. I welcome any review, and any help. None of us are getting paid to do this, and it was a lot of work. Thank you.
Thank you both.
Can I
Any
just,
questions? Yeah.
like, as with Adam, I didn't read every word, but I just want to clarify for myself, there's a whole section, starting on page 8, in red. So is that,
That was added.
that's what you, that was,
verbiage from the current ordinance.
Okay.
That had been taken out in the proposed ordinance.
Okay.
That we did recommend go back in.
oh, okay, gotcha.
Right.
All right,
And
thank you.
You're talking about the certificate of economic hardship.
Right.
The
Yeah.
certificate of economic hardship and also some language relative ability to put pressure on building owners that are allowing buildings to go unmaintained.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and kind of like, to reiterate what Ruth said, I understand that there are a couple members of council and other people that may feel upset or like they weren't kept in the process of things. But we have to keep in mind that this wonderful group of volunteers that does a lot for our city has not been able to do their job for quite some time. And they are the people that stepped up and got this done when the ordinance subcommittee has not met for 2 years. So keep that in perspective. I really appreciate all of your work. But if there's no more questions about the actual ordinance, we'll put this on the next cow and bring it back up again. So you kind of, take some time to look at it at home. Any alterations or any suggestions that you have, kind of make some notes and we can talk about them at our next cow so we can start getting this ordinance put together and hopefully back on the books here shortly so the CHLPC can do their jobs again. Anything else? Everybody okay with moving this to the next cow again instead of moving it to regular?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Then, next up is item number 11, to discuss resolution for designated account for the auditorium. Do you want to hit that up for us, Kyle?
Sure. So Attorney Johnson has drafted another resolution that would establish a restricted donation fund, again, to collect the donations specific to improving, I guess it's for the Oak Cultural Center Corporation with the intent of funding their work on the auditorium. This clarifies it would be city funds, and if the project didn't happen with a specific time frame, the funds would go in a certain direction within the city. I have had questions from some alders about if this is the best way to do this, still maintaining the non-city group and doing this. So, not sure if the resolution matches the intent or if there's another different way the council wants to approach this.
Thank you, Kyle. Go ahead, Automotive.
I would much rather see a committee formed under the city rather than a separate corporation out doing the fundraising. I think it would be fine to have a restricted fund, and we should have a restricted fund. In fact, we were able to locate all of the so-called missing money that was brought up at the last council meeting, and the HLPC has that sitting in their checking account. I would also like to see that moved over to the restricted fund at a point that we approve this. The way it's set up currently, I can't support this. I really strongly feel it needs to be a committee of the city and not a separate corporation doing the fundraising, and we need to bring that money back over to the city to a restricted fund.
Thank you, Aldermotive. The money Aldermotive is talking about is in the Mary Poser Fund. It's not just sitting in the CHLPC's general account or anything of that nature. It was approved to go to that fund, and moving it around is kind of the exact opposite of what we should be doing with it.
So my only comment was I'm all for this, and I hope that the group is successful. I do have a comment, though. I'm a little uneasy about them picking the contractor to do the review. If we do some kind of commission or whatever, some kind of group with the city, can the city have input who gets that RFP so that maybe we can maybe we can get somebody that's a little bit cheaper or somebody that's more familiar with our auditorium, because as Sarah pointed out, we've already had people up there. So why not bring back the old people and see, if their opinions have changed and or what the price would be, that type of thing.
I think that's actually a good point, is not settling on a specific contractor yet is probably in the best interest. I agree. Go ahead, Alder
Oh,
Reed.
no, thank you. Yes, I'm also with Shelley. I love the idea of having an outside group do all of the fundraising groundwork. I think they'll have much better luck than an actual city entity. But I do want the city to have control of the actual contractors, how it's going to be restructured, rebuilt. I just think it's too big of a project and too much history up there to have a outside group getting to determine who is doing the work. Thank you.
Thank you. And I don't disagree with that. So one quick important distinction that I think we need to make is this fund is only for the exploratory to see what the scope of the work is. So it wouldn't be for the actual work. This is just basically, Helen wanted to raise funds to have someone do a full-scale look at everything so that we understand what needs to be done, not necessarily the actual work yet. So in that part, I still think looking at multiple companies to do to give us the full scope idea is a good thing, but it's not going to be the actual work. I think the actual work, 1,000%, we definitely need to have an RFP and get multiple bidders on that, because that's even more important, I think. But this isn't that yet. Just so that we all understand that. This isn't about the work getting done. This is just the looking at it. Alder Steiner was up there first. Go ahead, Alder Steiner.
I'm still against this. I don't think it's really necessary, as the CHLPC does have the Mary Poser Fund, which is dedicated to working on the auditorium upstairs. And yeah, it's been sitting there for a while. We've had lots of other companies try to do this. I still think adding just random donations to the city is a liability we really shouldn't be taking on. We can designate it now wherever we want, but in 2 years, another council could decide to do something else with it. And that's a hazard I wouldn't really like to. It says right here, any part thereof. So you can put some of it here, you can put some of it there from another council, because it's technically general fund money, restricted to who can put into it and what can happen with it until those 2 years are up. So it just seems to me that this is just a liability for the city to take on. And I really don't think it's wise for us to do so.
Thank you, Alder Steiner. Go ahead.
My only comment in regards to having the work done revolved around the consultant that they wanted to hire. I mean, they wanted to bring in a new consultant at $60,000, and that is a year ago price. If we can bring somebody in that's already been up there, that has the background, that knows the structure of it, maybe that $60,000 could be 45 or something. That was my point that I was trying to make.
Yeah, and I got that. I just wanted to clarify for everyone else.
I just wanted to make sure everyone understood what I was talking about.
Yeah, in 2007, the Columbus Auditorium Committee had a full study done by Mead and Hunt. And that included absolutely everything that needed to be repaired and potential issues. And the HLPC has all of those documents in their records on how to move forward.
Right, and that is very true, but 2007 and 2023, there are very different needs up there. That auditorium looks different the 2 times I've been up there, and that was only a couple years apart. So 15 years apart is a lot for the rate of degradation of that building, of that portion of our building, unfortunately. So the 2007 study, and perhaps that company could be involved, but it's honestly not super relevant anymore, unfortunately. Any other thoughts? So how would council like to proceed? Do you want to move this to the regular meeting to establish the restricted fund? Do you want to put this to the COW again? Actually, I believe you guys are talking with Helen about this again at your next meeting.
She's on our agenda
yeah, I can't remember the dates off. So they'll be speaking with Helen about this too. So I would encourage you guys to, so I think one of the easier things for council and everyone to take into consideration is if Helen kind of piggybacked off of you guys and you kind of worked, if she worked with you in this process, so it was a city committee partially and it was an established city fund that it was going into, like the Mary Poser Fund. Like if her donations could go into the Mary Poser Fund and then the CHLPC could then potentially do an RFP for, or, you know, go out to bid for the companies that would look at it, and the CHLPC along with like Helen as an ad hoc on to with you guys could make a recommendation to council which company we chose to do it. I think that's probably the most logical path forward because that keeps everything, that uses existing funds that already exist. It uses an existing well-respected committee that already exists. There is no pass-through accounting. There is no outside organization other than working alongside with a reputable city committee. I think that would make the most sense if the CHLPC was willing to entertain something like that. But I think at your next meeting when you guys talk with Helen, I'll be there, of course. And I encourage anyone else on council to come along too that's interested. I think that should be part of the conversation is you guys helping her out because I think that would make everything, it would be by the book more and it would just make a lot more sense to do it that way if you guys are comfortable with that. I don't want to put more on your plate. You do a lot already. But I think that would just, and I don't know if you would really have to do much with it. I think Helen would be willing to do all the work. It's just more of you being kind of the official committee behind it, I think might make more sense. Right, yeah, she'd probably be on a subcommittee for you guys.
We have the expertise.
Yep, exactly.
We'd like to finish one project and get on to the other, and, yeah, that's been rolled down. The can has been kicked down the road a little bit on that, but, you know, we want to make sure there's a good plan going forward. Also, once you get this fixed up, who is going to operate it?
Right, yep. Yeah, and I think those are all things that your committee would be one of the best organizations to have input on. You know, why reinvent the wheel and create a new committee when we have a great committee in existence? So I think we should put this back on to our next cow. Well, after which, let's see, our next cow is going to be before the next CHLPC meeting. So I think we should move this to the cow after the CHLPC meeting because I think that's going to be I think that's a relevant conversation that the CHLPC needs to have before the council decides how to move forward, in my opinion, if everyone's okay with that.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, that's
So
what I was
put
thinking,
this
for May.
back, put this to 4 weeks in the future. Okay. Sounds like everybody, Alder Rolke, you feeling good? Okay. Seeing lots of nodding heads, so let's table this until, well, I guess it'd be our first meeting in May for the cow. And thank you guys so much again. And then next up is the discuss resolution for designated account, oh, sorry, I just did that one. Woo! Discuss field service director position. Goodness, sorry about that. Did you want to kick that one off for us, Kyle?
Sure. So the Columbus Utility Commission, they've been recruiting for a utility director for several months, and they don't have anyone placed in that position currently. And sort of at the same time, the Public Works Director position is vacant, and it's sort of unusual to have those both vacant at the same time. So there is an opportunity, having those both vacant at the same time. And the Utility Commission looked at the opportunity, and they're interested just to look at what it might look like to combine those administrative positions together and bring someone in at likely a higher salary range that would manage both operations. So you can call them different things, field services, municipal services director. This would be your top level person that really manages, in this case, the field services, so public works, wastewater, stormwater, all your utilities, and basically all the field services and infrastructure that we put throughout the community. This would be a combination of a position that's funded by ratepayers and taxpayers, and there's ways to allocate that money. We already have policies in place and positions that are funded by a combination of those, and you can allocate those by workload and other methods. So the draft position description you have now is just an example. It was a combination of another municipality that has a position like this and a combination of some of the duties that we already had in existing descriptions. This would ultimately need to be approved by the City Council and the Utility Commission. And the utility director already needed to be ratified by the City Council anyways. So in many ways, this is kind of a cohesive way of bringing this together. It's still, I think, a concept. So, I mean, I think the City Council should think through if this is the right move. But the utility with their lead workers and the business manager is probably, fairly well suited. Public Works may need a little bit of work to bring in the structure that they need to have the right lead workers in place. But I think it's something that can be accomplished. And the hope is that having one leader over all of these can help us sort of, share all the equipment and bring a more cohesive effort and bring some savings and things like that as you have one person sort of making sure that all the resources are being used to the maximum extent possible. So that's what we have in front of you as a draft position, and we're just sort of looking for feedback on what the Committee of the Whole would like to see moving forward.
Perfect. Thank you, Cal. Go ahead, Alder Reed.
Oh, thank you. No, my first question is Field Services Director a good title for those doing a job search?
Municipal Services is the other one I've seen. Field, it's sort of an effort, and I don't think anyone's locked onto the specific title. And I think we can probably look at other communities that have this and pick whatever the most popular title is. But yeah, there's no magic in the Field Services title. It was sort of a reflection of what we were trying to capture under that umbrella.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Oh, no, thank you. Yeah, I was just picturing landscape maintenance when I heard the word. And I didn't want to confuse the applicants.
Thank you, and that's a good point. The title is definitely one of the working things that we would have to discuss if we go this route. Alder Steiner?
I was just curious because it looked like a lot of these tasks that this, whatever position you want to call it, is going to be very similar to what a DPW director is. How much is that going to change what a DPW director does, or do we even need a DPW director with this?
That's exactly it. We wouldn't have a separate DPW director. So this would be, this would be a combined role of the DPW director and the utility superintendent. So this is all one, which, in a lot of ways makes a lot of sense because they do work together a lot. Like both those two departments work together a lot. And part of the rationale of the recent changes with the utilities was to help make things a little more streamlined and potentially save money, utilizing equipment, things of that nature, which we already do, but this could help that even more. So as long as it's something that we can flesh out properly and it makes sense, I would definitely want to look into it. Because the other thing with this is the money savings, like another potentiality is having more another actual worker at the DPW, so more boots on the ground, because this would save a considerable amount of money between the two, combining the two roles into one. And it would also, not to air dirty laundry or open old wounds, part of problems in the past were some of the directors at Public Works being too hands-on in trying to do the job of the workers at Public Works. This would help alleviate that because it'd be more of an administrative position. Do you guys have any thoughts?
I support this. I do too.
Seen lots of nodding heads. Any thoughts on the job description and things of that nature? Did anyone get a long enough chance to really have?
Seems pretty straightforward to me. It combines the utilities all together with DPW, which they should work pretty closely together anyway.
Right.
We need an administrator to manage all that. So it works for me.
Right. Perfect. So I think one of the big things is we'll of course have to get the final draft approved as well as the title, because I'm on Trina's wavelength with the field services director. I don't think that's the right word. I do, as soon as he said municipal services director, that I liked a lot better just off the cuff, but I'm definitely not the person that makes that decision. But so I think working on the title, and do you think this is something that would be ready? Well, I suppose it depends on when the utility commission meets next, because they're going to have to talk about this as well.
Yeah, I think it's the 20th, which is a Thursday. So if we brought this back to the COW for discussion on the 18th and then the Utility Commission on the 20th, we would know then if it moved forward to the May regular meeting for approval, we would know if the Utility Commission had given their approval by that point.
Okay, that makes sense. So everyone okay with bringing this back to the next COW? And then the Utility Commission will talk about it shortly after that, and then we can hopefully do something at the following meeting in May. Any other questions or concerns or comments on the position? Okay, perfect. Is that good enough direction for now? Awesome. And then next up is the stormwater project discussion. Well, who wants to start, Kyle or Jason?
I think I was going to have Jason talk about the actual stormwater projects, and then I was going to talk a little bit about the funding and some of the other considerations, and then turn it over to the committee.
Yeah, that makes sense. If you'd like to walk us through the kind of how the priorities and everything of that nature.
Good evening. So in your packet, you'll find a memo from me dated January. And this was a follow-up to a discussion we had after the stormwater management report was last completed, the comprehensive one, and sent over for everybody's review. And one of the things that came out of that, if you remember, was a discussion about, how do we take this forward? What's the plan? And that really came with two pieces. One was getting our hands around the priority needs, and the second one was the funding piece, probably more importantly, the funding piece. And as a result of that, we went back and, working with staff, we kind of reorganized the projects in the report. We had recommended looking or focusing at the top 20 projects. And again, we had a graph in there that kind of looked at the costs and where they started to escalate fairly quickly, and that was after the top 20 projects. So we were trying to make something a little manageable. Excuse me. With that being said, we organized these so if, we had just ID'd the projects. So if you look at the table 1 in my memo, the left-hand column was just the number of the project. There was no significance to that by order or ranking. That was just a number to ID the project. If you recall, I believe there was just short of 100 total projects we identified, I think 94. And out of that, we used the rankings, again, to try and limit the subjectivity of that. And then the estimated dollars in the report, and kind of compile that as the basis or the jumping off point for Kyle. Now, again, keep in mind, some of these were annual costs, probably operating budget costs, even though they might have been a high priority. They were just reoccurring maintenance type costs. And then obviously, they were just subject to the ranking. And, as I was listening to Max talk earlier, and I didn't put this in the memo, but it occurred to me that, all of these top 20 projects have validity or importance. And there probably is some logical priority to doing them. And I think we attempted to look at how those sequence together. But with that being said, they're all have some value. So if, the council would say do the 4th ranked project over the 5th ranked project, I don't think that there's really any limiting factors here that would allow some of this to change. So I don't want to come up here with this subjective ranking and say, this is exactly how it has to be done, but I think these are the top 20 most important projects, and I do think we rank them in an order that would give them priority. Could you argue that priority? Probably. But since we're looking at those top 20, and I think that rounds out $5,349,000, I kind of kicked that forward to Kyle to look at all the other components that go into the funding. So was there any questions on the stormwater itself or the memo of how we just kind of pulled those projects out and rank them and prioritize them?
I actually have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So why wouldn't we put, these are probably some of the smaller dollars, but why wouldn't we put annual reoccurring maintenance at the top? And, so you have 120,000 listed as annual. And
Yeah.
to me, I feel like the city would need to commit to that on a regular basis, going forward, because that's what it costs annually to maintain for maintenance.
Right, good point, Shelley. And I think from the engineering perspective, I believe there probably already is some money in the general fund to tackle, say, just the annual inlet maintenance. And I know that we do the bonding to replace the storm sewer on the capital projects, like Folsom Street, for example, this year. There is money in the bonding to do that. So I think by nature, you're probably already doing that or have done that. But we didn't want to lose the fact that that's very
That it's part of
important. And it is a priority to continue to maintain. So how that factors into the overall plan, I think is a little bit maybe vague, but it's happening now. So I think that is just top of mind thing, in my opinion.
Thank you, Alder Albright. Any other questions about the priorities? I mean, thank you very much. This is immensely helpful. I think having a list of the top 20 I personally think the James Street culvert has to be number one. Some of the others could potentially be reorganized, but I don't see a strong need for them to be. That's kind of secondary, in my opinion. But I just appreciate having it all before us so that we can actually start taking action on it. Alder Reed?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm really impressed by the listing. I get a little sad looking at the estimated cost. And I do have to wonder if there are some simple parts where we could have some city savings with DPW staff for like a little bit of dredging in areas. So just throwing that out there.
I think some of the challenges with some of that is we get into like environmental things and like some of the stuff that you dredge out, it has to be dealt with in specific ways, and our DPW staff isn't exactly necessarily the trained in all of those things. So some of those things, it seems more simple than it is, unfortunately. You know what I mean? Like it sounds easy, but it's not. Like,
Correct, though. Ian's correct in that they don't have the same kind of training in what is considered hazardous material and how to properly dispose of the hazardous material. And so we do need someone who's certified and has that education to do it.
plus, I don't want the city being responsible for the hazardous material disposal. I want somebody else to be personally. But that's neither here nor there. But yeah, no, but I think there are some projects, like little things, like some of the maintenance that we probably could do some things in-house. That's a good point to just keep in mind, keep front of mind, so that, little things we can keep. And I think there are some other things that we also need to just have citizens aware of on a lot of things, because, I remember Jason talking about when they were going through and looking at areas, people, like residents, were building dams in the creeks and things. I think a lot of the maintenance and some of the random annual recurring costs can be saved simply by educating the people that live in these areas to, don't throw trash in it, don't make it into a dam. I know it's fun for kids to play with water, but probably not the best water to be playing with, type of thing. It does affect more people. So, there are little savings, is my roundabout way of agreeing with you. I'm sorry. Any other thoughts on this portion, or are we ready to get into the brass tacks of everything?
Let's do it.
All right. Thank you so much, Jason.
All right. So Jason actually helped on several components of this, getting the data, the funding priority list was important. And then recently we worked on a draft capital street plan that helped us sort of prioritize that. And the important part on that was when we were able to plug that into our capital plan, where we already have our existing approved capital equipment requests, and we were able to plug in some capital street requests in a draft format. And so when we started looking at the stormwater requests, we again noted that some are a little bit more of a permanent nature, like the box culvert, and then there were others, like the dredging, that are a little bit more transient. It's hard to tell how long that dredging will last. You have to sort of assume that's going to be a repetitive project of some nature. And so, I think having the James Street box culvert is a good first priority. The other thing is that I think there's going to be a good chance that there's some state funding there because it is a state highway. So we may want to invest some of our early money in the engineering to, help convince the state that there's a need for it. We feel like a lot of that work has probably been done. We tried to convince the state during the project, and they weren't having it, but that might have been also because of project pressures and deadlines, and we may find a little bit more time and space for them to really look at it now. So I think that's an opportunity to see if we can get a really important project done, potentially at a shared cost or maybe a small cost for us. Once we get to the other projects, I think these all have importance to them. Like a lot of things that we have on the list. Currently, we have the streets on here. We don't have on this capital plan any of the capital buildings. So we don't have a fire station on here. We don't have a DPW on here. We don't have any of the stormwater on this plan. And this plan basically spends money at the equivalent rate that we're spending it now, so that the debt service will essentially stay pretty much the same. By 2032, there's about $173,000 additional in debt service, but that's a one-year blip, and then it drops back down to about $38,000 more than we're paying now. So hopefully by that time we have some additional growth to help offset that additional debt service. So, I think it's important to recognize that those are kind of the plain facts about what we're accommodating right now. So I put several questions in there because these are the questions that I am going to be looking for, for policy guidance moving forward. And I'm not going to bore you with a lot more because I think we're sort of going on the assumption that we all want improved streets. We want these stormwater improvements to happen. We want to continue buying equipment and catching up on the old equipment that we have so that our staff can be safe and have equipment that works. And we also want to continue working towards buildings like a DPW building and a fire station. So those are the assumptions I'm going on. So as I look at solutions, and there's many, but I really came down to 5. We can swap the funding that we have. We can just borrow more and increase the taxes. We can decrease the spending that we have right now on non-essential services and dedicate that towards either debt service or capital expenditures. We can identify new revenue, or we could just kind of keep going like we're going and do what we can as we can, which is not a great solution. But when we literally can't pay for all of the stuff that we have, I think we're looking for some kind of middle ground that lets us do a little of everything, because I'm not sure there's a solution that lets us do everything in a reasonable manner for our taxpayers or for anyone. So, that's probably not the great news that the people in the audience want to hear. It's not the news I want to deliver. And that's, not the positive message necessarily, but it's the fiscal reality that we have. Ideally, as growth happens, things will start to get better, and we'll start to, naturally generate some of that, new revenue that will help. But I think there are some difficult decisions that will have to be made as we move forward. So that's what staff are really looking for. And these aren't necessarily decisions now, but as we move forward into budget season, which won't be that far away, these decisions are the ones we're going to start shaping the future of Columbus.
Right. So to put everything a little bit more plainly of what Kyle is trying to say. So basically, we have our streets planned out for the next 10 years, and we're doing, what percentage of our streets are we actually doing that needs to be done with what our plan is?
I don't know what percentage. This is just the top 10 priorities. It's only $17 million worth on this list, and we're doing $10 million. Jason, do you have an estimate on what's covered on this list?
I mean, it's not a super necessary statistic anyway. But I mean, so even out of the top priorities of almost $18,000 or $18 million of streets, in our current plan to stay at the debt levels that we're at, we can't even do all of that. Like, we're not even capable of that. At our current plan, we don't have enough for all of the increases in salary pay that we're going to have to do in the future. In our current plan, we don't have enough for the infrastructure of our buildings. There is $0 allocated to a fire station, $0 allocated to a DPW. None of this is in our budget. That's what Kyle is saying. We don't even have in our budget to maintain all of the services and the streets and the buildings we currently have. So adding, while stormwater is 1,000% necessary and this has to be done, what everyone needs to understand is there are thousands of 1,000% necessary projects that we absolutely have to do, and we cannot do them all. So we have to start picking and choosing what we do, how much, where our budget goes, and things of that nature. It's also part of the reason why I and some other members of council have been pushing for growth for so long. It is the only way we stay viable and we can do more of these things, is to grow. We need more tax base, or we start doing less and less all the time. We start doing less and less streets, and we start doing less and less everything, and we never get a fire station. So this is the reality of where we're at. We need to come up with how we do this. I think the only thing that we have right now, since the current stormwater utility is not funded, is we have to kind of chip away at things. I really believe that this James Street culvert, that is priority one. I think we need to figure out how to get that started and start moving forward on that project. And we need to start coming up with how we're paying for that. So there's kind of, like Kyle alluded to, it's not in the budget, but we have to pay for it. Our options are raise taxes raise the debt, go into more debt, which raises taxes. Cut services, like the great things that Amy does. Absolutely nobody wants to do that. Or don't fix streets, or things of that nature. Those are our options. So, or we try going back to referendum again and try getting a stormwater utility to pay for this. And this is the reality of the world. This isn't me being a Debbie Downer. This is the plain speak of what Kyle just tried to explain to everyone. Go ahead.
So when I was going through my list, I had top 6. Obviously, maintenance is a big thing. My top 2 would be 9 and 33. As far as I feel like I would not be opposed to doing the referendum, but I think we need to show good faith to show people that we are trying to make progress.
Right.
Because
the
city is never going to approve another referendum unless we have numbers that they can look at and we have work that they can see that was done.
And that's what I'm getting at. I think we need to commit to doing the James Street culvert right away, regardless of if the referendum passes or not. We need to come up with funding for that. But I think we need to also reconsider going back to referendum. Mayor Arnold?
Yeah, I'm going to chime in on that, too. When I was on school board, of course, we tried to get a referendum passed a couple times, never went anywhere. Finally passed because citizens, really concerned people, got involved. And so people in the community perceived this as coming from parents and community members. They didn't see it as school board telling them they had to do this. And I think one of the problems with the referendum not passing last time, and I heard this from people, it was the city is coming in and telling you people what we're going to, you're going to have to pay more, and the city is imposing this. It wasn't the community members saying, this is a need. This is a real need that affects a lot of people in our community. And if we could get some of the, Max and Ron, you've done such a good job of advocating. I think if you could do something, grassroots, citizen action kinds of stuff with your neighbors who are concerned, and with, my house doesn't flood, I sit on a hill, but I would be more than happy to help with something like that because I know it affects the whole community. So I'm really going to advocate for going back to referendum as long as there is the preparation there first. And because all the other options to me are just pitiful,
Right,
really.
they're almost not options.
Yeah, they really are not.
That's
So,
the hard thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I agree. I think the wonderful position we're in now is we have the top priorities. We have a list of things in a good logical order that we need to do them in. We have the expenses. We have all the information that I think our community was upset we didn't have last time when we went to referendum. And we also have the luxury of the next election isn't until next spring. So we have a lot of time to do a proper, to really get the word out and get good information to everyone so that they can hopefully understand the need for stormwater maintenance in our city. And I mean, it's that, or we literally have the choice of doing stormwater or doing streets, or doing stormwater or having a senior center. These are our choices. Like, we can't do stormwater and everything else. That is where we're at. We can't add more. Well, we can, but then that means all of your taxes go up, and we still can't do all of the stormwater because we can't increase your taxes by that much. So, yeah, go ahead, Alderstein.
I just want to say I agree with the whole Dame Street box culvert as a starting off point. We have to show good faith that the city is working as hard as we can to accomplish something towards this goal. I would also like to see another campaign for the referendum for the stormwater, because it is a utility that is becoming more and more of a pressing need throughout the community, and we're in an unfortunate situation that this stuff has just been put off for far too long. We can point fingers at whoever we want to for it, but it doesn't change anything. We have to fix it, and we have to fix it soon, or the streets that we fix, well, we're going to lose all these other streets on top of it. We're going to lose residents, we're going to lose houses, we're going to lose buildings, and then we won't have a city regardless. So I think we really need to kind of charge forth on this. As reckless as it may seem, we still have to take our proper procedures, but we need the money one way or the other, and regardless of how you think about it, we're going to get it, just not the way you want.
Yeah, but part of moving forward is we do have to kind of give direction on how to pay for this. Like, it's not in the budget. So if this is something that we want to do right away, the money doesn't materialize. It is something that we have to discuss on how we pay for it is the hard part. Go ahead, Con.
So obviously, there's always contingency money that we put in the budget. I think the initial effort is going to be an engineering effort to kind of go to DOT, and a lot of the work, I think, Rupert Milkie has tried to demonstrate already to DOT that it was undersized and to show them what the correct sizing should be. So I think a lot of that is there. The other thing is we actually had a really good bid on Folsom Street. And it came in less than we expected.
Yeah.
So it's a bond, so we can use street money for street money. So there may be some potential there when we get the final numbers. So there are some potentials there.
So, but does everyone agree that we should at least start moving forward with the James Street culvert?
Yes.
So I think that's the big takeaway. And then we definitely, I think everyone's in agreement, we need to start moving forward with a new, campaign for a referendum again to try to get that out there.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, the only other way to fund these things without cutting anything or drastically raising taxes is special assessments. And that's also something that I'm sure no one that lives in the areas that directly affected want, because those are not going to be small special assessments. When you have an $800,000 project and a handful of homes that are directly affected, it's a massive assessment. So that's also not a great thing. But that's kind of where we're at. None of our options to pay for this are great without a utility. Go
The
ahead.
Utility Commission had already started to talk about getting the referendum going again, so I just wanted to say we're happy to work in conjunction to do whatever to get it going again, because we really need to get this referendum
Right.
passed.
And I think the Utility Commission will be a vital participant in getting the information out. Go ahead.
So, if we were gonna start out with the project for 731,000, my question was for Kyle, do we have, any kind of bonding that we can renegotiate, or can we do any kind of refinancing to get a favorable interest rate and to borrow for the first project?
No, we're not really in a good place to like refinance anything. The rates are high, so we're actually, there's really no refinancing going on right now. We do have a little bit of that extra money from the current bond issuance with the project coming in less than expected, that we can save some of that, or use some of that money for a similar use. But again, I'm hoping that we can use it for the preliminary work and then get some buy-in from the state, because it is
Right.
a state highway project, that they maybe would do this at 80/20 or something like that. And then we would pay like the shoulder portion like we do on the state highways. So if worse came to worse, I think we could look at, financing with a state trust fund loan or something like that. But, I do think that the box culvert has seemed like that's a bottleneck for a lot of things. So I think that would be an important one for a variety of reasons to get behind us.
Right. Yeah, and we can figure out to pay for that one. It's paying for the rest that we definitely aren't going to be able to figure out without making some changes. So so everyone's in agreement. We want to start moving forward with that. So probably starting with engineering and getting that all figured out. Hopefully, we can all pray that the state will kick in at least something and make that a lot more viable. And if the state kicks in something, then I think we should start talking about piggybacking off of that and another project on top of it, if it becomes more, because we need it kind of like Alder Steiner alluded to. It doesn't matter why it hasn't happened, but we are really, really far behind on stormwater maintenance in the city. It is a bigger need than what I think a lot of residents really understand, and it is vital that we start moving forward. So that is good. Any other thoughts on that? Everybody's comfortable moving forward with at least that
I do.
project to start? Go ahead.
I have, so as far as the education aspect, because I sat through the presentation too with people building dams. So is that something else that we can start reaching out to those residents that have dams where they're not supposed to be? And/or are we maintaining the city ponds, our own ponds? Are we maintaining those? I feel like we should make a commitment to doing that stuff, that kind of work too on an annual basis.
Yeah, there was some work to identify those areas. I know that there was some work done last fall to educate and remove those dams and educate the area homeowners, so hopefully it doesn't appear again. And we were actually just looking at some equipment recently that could help us take care of the dams with equipment that would probably pay itself back potentially even within 1 year versus contracting out like we have been doing. So we're still looking at that, but it's something that is a kind of a work in progress right now.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think the equipment is something that we should be looking aggressively at too, to get that funded, make it a priority along with the culvert. Let's see, anything else? I had a thought and I lost it, but it's probably not that big of a deal then. So we're comfortable with that direction for now, move forward with the culvert at least for now, and hopefully get the state participation. That brings us to item number 14, which is to convene to close session per 19.851E, deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investment of public funds, or conducting other public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, specifically to discuss potential developments in the city of Columbus, specifically 146 and 154 North Dickinson Boulevard buildings. I'll take a motion.
Alder Motif will make a motion to move to closed session per 19.851E to deliberate or negotiate the purchase of public properties.
Alder Steiner will second.
I have a motion from Alder Motif and a second from Alder Steiner. If you could take a roll call for us, please, Pat.
Arnold. Gray.
Aye.
Motif.
Aye.
Reed. Rolke. Steiner. Albright.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. will not be coming back to open session